Chapter 381 The Mysterious Empress. In the Abyss Core, protected by various abyssal arrays. Fortunately, I studied a little of the abyssal arrays. Maximus muttered, seeing such a complicated array structure. Knowing yourself and the enemy is essential to winning every fight. In a few days, he used all the system points he received to study everything he could find about the abyss. Abyssal arrays were one of them. Using system points, he went from a novice to a Tier 9 abyssal array master in a matter of hours. If not for the lack of time and information, he might have even become a Tier 10 abyssal array master. With access to the Nexus virtual gateway, the knowledge he could freely access and buy reached Tier 10. Except for some secret Tier 10 skills, he could buy everything with money. As for Tier 11 knowledge, it's not something money alone can buy. One needed to join a top organization or family to have access to this peak knowledge. For example, in the Mercenary Alliance, once one reached the rank of S Squad, they would become eligible to exchange contribution points for Tier 11 knowledge. This was the most easiest way Maximus found to access Tier 11 knowledge. The Mercenary Alliance didn't have strict binding rules. One just needed to complete missions and rank up. Sighing at such a strict information monopoly, Maximus quickly analyzed the abyssal array barrier before him.
Peak Tier 9 abyssal array?
Not bad. Maximus nodded with a sigh of relief. He thought it would be a Tier 10 abyssal array. Fortunately, it was only Tier 9. It seemed that the Abyss Monarchs didn't have enough skill or time to set up a higher-ranked array. Instead of destroying the array, Maximus smoothly manipulated it, modifying it to his advantage. After modification, it could not only contain the Abyss monsters coming out but also hide everything that would happen inside. After entering, the endless Tier 9 Abyss monsters coming out of the portal looked at him.
A human powerhouse.
It's the human who blocked us.
A human D. ED? Me? You wish?
Spreading his domain, he suppressed all the Abyss monsters coming out of the portal. It's you who will die. Urging his domain, the pressure increased multiple-fold, crushing the Abyss monsters around.
No Abyss Monarch?
Maximus muttered in puzzlement, seeing no resistance. For him, killing a Tier 9 Abyss monster could be done with just the pressure of his domain. Containing the power of his origin, his domain was equivalent to a conceptual killer that nothing could survive. Resurrection, skills, techniques, domain. None of it would function under his origin domain. His domain essentially stopped the origin of everything within it. While disappointed at such an easy fight, he felt a murderous gaze coming from the portal.
An Abyss God?
Maximus muttered in shock. He thought the Abyss portal energy was only enough for a single Abyss God to come through. He didn't expect another one would appear. However, it's no use, Maximus thought, looking at the Abyss God with interest. The human Her Majesty, the Empress, wanted. I didn't expect you would come directly to our door. The Abyss God said coldly.
The Empress?
A Tier 11 Abyss creature. Maximus thought with a frown. It seemed the appearance of the Abyss God was not a coincidence. It was most likely coming for him or Malgrin. Did the previous Abyss Monarch report them to the Abyss? Well, since you are here, don't come back, the Abyss God said, stretching a phantom hand to grab him. Just this? Maximus muttered, also stretching his hand to parry. As two huge hands made of energy collided, the Abyss began to vibrate, as the abyssal array barrier started to crack. You're pretty strong, the Abyss God said in shock, seeing Maximus parry his attack. You too, Maximus praised, hurriedly repairing the abyssal array barrier. He didn't want the fight to spread anywhere else. Thanks, but it's time for you to die. Finishing his piece, the Abyss God started to attack. Transforming into its true form, the Abyss God lunged toward Maximus. Not so fast, Maximus said with a smile. With the essence of law wrapping his body, he fought the Abyss God head-on.
Boom! Boom! Boom!
Clash after clash, Maximus and the Abyss God fought without stopping. Employing various abyssal attacks, Maximus just smiled and conjured attacks of his own. Studying for billions of epics each day, his arsenal of skills was uncountable. While each attack of the Abyss God was like a rain of basic attacks, his was ever-changing, like a myriad of skills. Training your skills on me? The Abyss God frowned. As an Abyss God, an invincible Abyss monster in its tier, it also had pride. Seeing Maximus seem to be toying with it, he began to rage and attack Maximus with full force. Initially, he wanted to keep Maximus alive to present him to the Scarlet Moon Empress. However, with anger, he already lost his reason. Out of his mind, the Abyss God attacked at a stronger and faster pace. That's more like it. Maximus smiled, enjoying the fight. While maintaining the abyssal array barrier, he continued to toy with the Abyss God, polishing his skills. It's not every day that he could find an opponent that was almost his match. Fighting with all his might, Maximus didn't notice a gaze quietly creeping up within the portal. The portal changed from a bundle of energy to a bundle of eyes. Hidden in Maximus' senses, floating eyes begin to come out of the portal watching and analyzing his every move. What an interesting human. A voice behind the portal muttered. Finally waking up from a dreamlike state, he noticed that as he was fighting, he was already surrounded by eyes all around. Not good, knowing that an enemy beyond his capability was coming, Maximus became alert. Done playing with the Abyss God, he condensed 1,118 essences of law into one and attacked the Abyss God.
ED.
As the attack took all his power into one hit, the Abyss God didn't have time to react as he got blasted by the attack. Huff, huff, huff. Maximus breathed heavily as he stabilized his energy. His attack was not just a simple combination of essences of law. Maximus took all of its change, reaction, and frequency into consideration, perfectly combining it into one. This was only possible by using his independent consciousness to calculate all the possibilities. During the attack, millions of epochs of information needed to be processed just for the attack to successfully form. Furthermore, to ensure that the attack wouldn't go to waste and hit the enemy, he also needed to calculate the state of the enemy. Overall, in just a few milliseconds, tens of millions of epochs worth of information needed to be processed in his consciousness. Although he was already capable of comprehending a trillion epochs worth of information that was spread throughout the day. Every second, he could only comprehend a few million epochs of information at most. Much less in a few milliseconds, where he could only process tens of thousands of epochs worth of information. To condense a tens of millions of epochs worth of information into milliseconds caused huge damage to his consciousness. Fortunately, the crystallized will protected his origin like an iron wall. Besides some sluggishness and chaotic energy, everything was fine. He just needed some time, and he'd come back to his full condition. It's not destroyed? Suddenly, Maximus noticed that the portal made of eyes was undamaged. His attack earlier, besides being directed at the Abyss God, its main target was this weird portal. Seeing the Abyss God disintegrate to nothingness while this portal came out intact made him even more worried. What is this? As he muttered, he suddenly heard a laugh that made his mind numb with pain. Although indistinguishable to his ears, his consciousness processes it as laughter. Dangerous? Using his last strength and will, he conjured another attack, merging various Tier 10 treasures with the attack. This few addition also burdened his mind with billions of epoch worth of information in just a few milliseconds.
Boom.
An explosion 1,000,000 times the magnitude of the earlier attack appeared. This attack not only consumed his accumulation of Tier 10 treasures, but it also damaged his consciousness to a high degree, barely allowing him to think clearly. As the smoke subsided, he looked at the portal to see the effect of his attack.
This dash.
Seeing his attack didn't completely destroy the weird portal, Maximus despaired. If the crazy being behind the portal emerged, the Etherium realm, his family, friends, his whole foundation would be gone.
It's finished, no.
Maximus, eyes widened, erasing his despairing thought. His thinking capabilities seemed to be impaired, as he was not someone to fall into despair easily. It's not finished yet. Not wanting to give up everything, Maximus began to burn his origin. This gave his collapsing consciousness a new lease of life, providing fuel for another attack. Forming his last-ditch attack, Maximus looked at the weird portal with determination.
Kill.
Along with his last attack, Maximus began to lose consciousness. In his falling, he vaguely heard a few words of praise, as if saying, "See you again, my beloved darling." What the dash? With a fall, Maximus's consciousness went dark. Chapter 382 The Greedy Fairy. A few moments later, Maximus opened his eyes. Still alive. His origin didn't seem too damaged. His domain, spirit, soul, and law were still working, quickly giving him an infusion to wake up. Struggling, he got up looking around the battlefield.
It's gone.
Maximus thought with a sigh of relief. The weird portal containing a great horror was finally gone. Thinking of his near-death experience, he couldn't help but sigh. It seems that my strength is still weak. He thought that even if he couldn't fight a being at Tier 11, there wouldn't be a problem repelling or escaping from it. However, Based on his experience earlier, he was like a powerless baby in front of such an enemy. Just the presence of the enemy nearly paralyzed him to the ground. As expected of a titled abyss creature, they're too strong. Maximus comforted himself. Titled abyss creatures were different from other tier 11 beings. They were invincible in their realm, similar to the tier 10 abyss gods. It's already shocking that he could still stand under its presence and attack. Thinking of this, Maximus heaved a sigh of relief. He nearly went awry, breaking his invincible heart. Looking around, he seemed to be in the void. The abyssal array barrier had long been destroyed. The land he was lying on was just a piece of the abyss he had cut off. The moment he combined 1,118 essences of law to attack, he cut off the battlefield so the abyss wouldn't get caught in the attack. Looking at the vast empty void, he realized how insignificant he was. As depicted in the book, the void is not empty, it's just big. Far away, he saw great dimensions like lights in the dark. No matter how far he was, their size was ever changing, as if they could be touched with just a stretch of a hand. However, based on what he studied, the closest tier 12 dimension to the Etherium realm was 3 billion dimensional parsecs away. Dimensional parsec is the unit of measurement used in the Alliance, with one dimensional parsec being equal to the size of a tier 12 dimension. Such an unimaginable distance yet so close, just proves how great a tier 12 dimension is. After scanning the void, he found the abyss dimension as it eroded the Etherium realm. So that's the abyss? Maximus muttered. From afar, it looked like chaotic dark matter swallowing all the light and energy around it. It was like a black hole, yet formless like smoke. In front of the abyss was the Etherium realm. Different from the abyss, the Etherium realm was like a blue jewel shining in the dark. 99% of the Etherium realm was a chaotic sea. If someone saw it from the void, they might mistakenly think of it as an ocean dimension. Unfortunately, besides chaotic beasts, life couldn't survive inside the chaotic sea. Admiring his home dimension, he thought of a way to come back. About 0.012 dimensional parsec. It seemed that his attack had launched him too far. It would take a few years to return the usual way. Thinking of Jixia, he removed the ban on the Nexus virtual gateway. Not trusting the transdimensional system, unless needed, Maximus always kept it banned.
Yeehaw.
Why are you in the void, host? Jixia asked, seeing the place. An abyss god accidentally hit me. Maximus lied with a straight face.
Are you alright, host?
Why are you so unlucky? Jixia asked, looking at him worriedly. This was her patron saint, the source of her wealth. She couldn't let anything happen to Maximus. As a fairy guide, although Maximus didn't need to pay her a salary, all his transactions using the transdimensional system would give her a cut converted into fairy coins. Usually, when her host banned her, he was in the FM fairy dimension showing off to her sisters. Seeing her patron saint so unlucky, she nearly had a heart attack. Alright, don't ask too much. Just take me back to the abyss. Can you do that?
Of course, host.
However, as this is spontaneous void teleportation, the cost will be 10 times. Whatever, just take me back. Maximus was too lazy to pay attention to such a small amount of money. To travel from one dimension to another, one only needed coordinates and about 1 billion dimensional coins. Compared to the amount he usually spent, it was nothing. Alright, host, get ready. Manipulating the void, a wormhole sucked Maximus out, directly teleporting him back to the abyss. Aha, that was quick, Maximus muttered in satisfaction, seeing he was back.
Of course, host.
This cost 10 sextillion dimensional coins. Jixia said proudly.
10 sextillion?
Isn't it 10 billion? A host, that was dimensional teleportation. What we did is void teleportation. Because there is no stable energy around, we can only use the dimensional coins as backup energy, Jixia explained. Is that so? Maximus frowned. It seemed that he still had a lot to study. Earlier, he had just studied the history, top forces, and rules of the Dimensional Alliance. As for the prices, hidden functions, various events, available materials, etc., he was still clueless. Never mind, Maximus muttered as he turned his attention to the abyss. Spreading his domain, it was suddenly stuck like a rusty door. As he spread it wider, his body started to hurt while his origin showed signs of being damaged. My domain is out of order. Maximus frowned. Jixia, can you scan the abyss and project it to me?
Sure, host, as this is a...
Just tell me the price, Maximus said impatiently. He already knew the routine of this Nexus fairy. As long as you have money, it can do anything. A. It would be 1 billion dimensional coins per light year, host. A. How much is it to view the battlefield between the apex sovereigns and the abyss monarchs? Based on the scan, the battlefield area is 142,583 light years. Only 142 trillion? Scan it for me. Hearing it was so cheap, he quickly instructed Jixie to project the battlefield. Soon, a projection appeared before him. Jixie, being a good service provider, also edited and focused on the exciting fights. You're quite good at this, Maximus praised. Ahihi, as long as you pay, host. Jixie said with a wink. On the screen, the desperate apex sovereigns were teaming up to fight for their lives. Each abyss monarchs was surrounded by at least 100 apex sovereigns employing all kinds of tricks. From weird curses, poison, arrays, conjunction attacks, to mental assaults such as curses and insults. What an interesting way to fight. Normally, an apex sovereign had no way of fighting head-on with an abyss monarch. But these tricksters had brilliant minds. Since they couldn't fight head-on, they went to kite the abyss monarchs to death. Instead of competing with strength, they fought to see who could last standing. The apex sovereigns had Maximus as their backing, so they didn't have to worry about energy deficiency. As for the abyss monarchs, without the backup from the main abyss dimension, they could only rely on this abyss plane. Before invading the abyss, Maximus bound the apex sovereigns, giving them an infinite supply of amalgamation of will. After crystallizing the amalgamation of will, Maximus could freely convert it to any energy, from the essence of law to faith energy. With a seemingly infinite supply of energy, the apex sovereigns didn't have to worry about anything but attacking. He didn't expect they would abuse it, dragging the abyss monarchs to death. Feeling the rapidly flowing amalgamation of will being drained from him, he frowned in distress. By his estimate, each apex sovereign used hundreds of billions of units of amalgamation of will each second. Furthermore, seeing Malgrin, Fialon, Alabaster, and Riadius going crazy fighting multiple abyss monarchs at once made him cringe. Different from the rest, these bastards directly converted the amalgamation of will to origin power. Like coal powering a nuclear reactor, his poor amalgamation of will was getting sucked out of existence just to fuel their fighting. While the thousands of apex sovereigns only used about hundreds of trillions of amalgamation of will each second. These bastards used hundreds of quadrillion units of amalgamation of will each second. Overall, to maintain their fighting intensity, he was spending tens of sextillion units of amalgamation of will. What a bunch of brutes.
Maximus cursed. Why, host?
It seems like they were doing well. Jixie said, admiring the warriors of the Etherium realm.
Unfortunately, they couldn't win. Jixie commented.
She had seen more despicable and ingenious ways of fighting than these. Using traps, numbers, disguising moves. Yet even if there were thousands of Tier 9 individuals teaming up, they still couldn't defeat the Abyss Monarch. Invincibility couldn't just be defeated by numbers.
How do you say so?
No matter how strong a lion is, as long as it is trapped in an iron cage, it would starve to death. Without a source, these Abyss Monarchs would be exhausted sooner or later. Although it would cost a lot of energy, as long as they won, Maximus would just grit his teeth and pay. It seems that you are quite confident, host. Jixie said, looking at his smile.
Haha, we'll see.
Chapter 383 End of Abyss. Soon, the days continued to pass as Maximus watched the Apex Sovereigns fight the Abyss Monarchs. With his origin damaged, Maximus could do nothing but watch the fight. Fortunately, the amalgamation of will flowed without stopping, giving the Apex Sovereign the strength to continue fighting. While ensuring his family's safety, Maximus suddenly noticed Malgrin, who was fighting, suddenly become sluggish.
What happened to him?
Did he get caught up in a spell?
Host.
It seems that Malgrin is participating in a primal arena, Jixie said, observing Malgrin's condition.
What?
This bastard is still fighting in that stupid competition during this time. Without Malgrin's full concentration, the Abyss Monarchs began to besiege him, causing damage even to the surrounding Apex Sovereigns. Noticing the change in the battlefield, Fialon, Alabaster, and Riadius quickly went to Malgrin's aid. Seeing them stabilize the battlefield, Maximus heaved a sigh of relief. This Malgrin is really crazy. Although he had bet 100 septillion dimensional coins on Malgrin, he was still shocked by his recklessness. In the middle of a battle, Malgrin dared to lose concentration and fight on another battlefield. Fortunately, there were others who could hold the front for him. Soon, after a few hours, Malgrin returned to normal. What's Malgren's current ranking in the Primal Feast competition? Maximus asked, seeing the battlefield return to its usual rhythm. Malgren just passed the qualification round a few days ago. Now, after another fight, he has reached the top 512 primal fighters.
Oh, so fast?
Just a few more fights and Malgren would win the championship. Maximus muttered with a smile. With a bet of 100 septillion dimensional coins, if Malgren won, he would pocket over 5 octillion dimensional coins. This amount of money is enough for him to spend for a while. Thinking about it, he chose to forgive Malgren's recklessness earlier. Tell me when it's Malgren's turn to fight. I'll cover for him, Maximus reminded. Although his origin was damaged and he couldn't fight directly, he could still control an unconscious body to fight. With this guarantee, no matter how many days Malgren fought in the primal arena, the battlefield wouldn't be affected. He also informed Malgren about this plan, so he wouldn't be surprised to see his body move on its own. Thinking it was a good idea, Malgren quickly agreed. After all, the enemy was getting stronger and stronger. In the qualification round, even if he used 1/10 of his consciousness, he could still fight. Now all his enemies were at peak tier 10. Malgren needed to be at his full concentration to even have the chance to win. Soon months passed, and the Abyss Monarchs began to show signs of energy deficiency. Initially, they were like mad dogs, wanting to bite anyone. Now, they were like defeated dog, wanting to preserve their energy and wait for reinforcements. Unfortunately, without a titled Abyss creature taking action, their chances of survival were close to zero. He had Jixie ban the space on this dimensional coordinate. Unless one had higher authority, no one could teleport to this place temporarily. The Abyss Monarchs seemed to know this and started to go mad. A host, the Abyss Monarchs activated its innate skill, the Forbidden Sky. It's over. It's time to escape, host. Jixie hurriedly reminded. Forbidden Sky is an innate skill of an Abyss Monarchs where they use their last breath and sacrifice it to the Abyss will. This would cause the Abyss to resonate, devouring all energy it touch. Besides physical strength, all kinds of energy attacks will just feed the enemy, making them stronger. In this state, any strategy or cleverness is useless. The only way one could survive this is through pure strength and combat ability.
I know.
I've already prepared for this, Maximus said with a smile. Knowing the essence of the Abyss Monarchs, how could he not be prepared? Time to close the net. As if hearing his words, the apex sovereigns on the battlefield paused and looked at the enemy with red eyes. With a movement of their minds, their origins started to explode, giving them power beyond their usual capabilities.
Origine explosion.
This is insane,
Jixie muttered, shocked.
Origin explosion is no different from suicide. Once the origin is damaged, it is forever damaged. Unless one has a heaven-defying ultimate treasure, repairing it is just a dream. Seeing them burn their origin, Jixie thought the era of apex sovereigns in the Etherium realm was over. Even if they came back alive to tell the tale, they would be mere pieces and bones left. This is a special origin explosion. Maximus smiled mysteriously. This is his self-created origin explosion. Although this forbidden technique can only enhance physical ability, the damage done can be easily healed by him. Practicing the Origin Ultimate Cultivation Manual, his proficiency with the origin is top-notch. Maximus dared to say that the depth of his knowledge in this subject surpassed that of a Tier 11 individual. Thus, with his guarantee, those apex sovereigns didn't need to worry about accidentally dying after the explosion of their origin. Seeing their power multiply 1,000-fold in just a short while, they looked at the Abyss Monarchs like they were prey. It's your turn, they muttered coldly. Kidding the Abyss Monarchs like dogs made them physically and mentally exhausted. Seeing that it was the final showdown, they couldn't help but lick their lips in bloodthirst.
Kill.
With desperation and excitement, the apex sovereigns and the Abyss Monarchs began to clash without regard for their lives. However, after a few clashes, the Abyss Monarchs still had the upper hand. Despite boosting their strength 1,000 times, the apex sovereigns were simply no match for the invincible Abyss Monarchs. Seeing a casualty about to occur, Maximus quickly came to the rescue. After a few months, his origin was somehow restored. Getting near the battlefield, where his domain could reach them, Maximus quickly came to support. Each Abyss Monarch's fatal attack was quietly deflected or blocked, ensuring that no apex sovereign died. They were the culmination of talent and wealth of the Etherium realm, and even one dying was a pity. Within his power, Maximus tried his best to prevent any casualties. Unfortunately, In a chaotic battlefield and with his battered origin, 1 or 2 apex sovereigns still died from time to time. Soon hours and days passed, and only 4 apex sovereigns and 12 abyss monarchs were left standing. All the apex sovereigns with exhausted battle potential were already sent back by Maximus to the Etherium realm. Only Malgrin, Fialon, Alabaster, and Riadius were left on the battlefield. Finish this already, Maximus secretly shouted, lying down lazily. With a few miscellaneous abyss monarchs left, they were no longer a threat to them. Soon, with the occasional support of Maximus, the number of remaining abyss monarchs dwindled until all of them were executed. Finally done. Maximus heaved a sigh of relief. Looking at the battlefield, one could see the remnants of a devastating battle. Malgrin, Fialon, Alabaster, and Riadius were battered with broken parts all over their bodies. This was just the external damage. Inside, their soul, spirit, especially their origins, were quite damaged. Even with his help, it would take a few years to return to their full condition. However, compared to the torture and time they went through fighting neck to neck with the abyss, this was nothing. How about we drink first? Maximus invited. That would be delightful, Alabaster said. The others also quickly took up the offer and sat haphazardly on the ground. Taking a sip of wine, they couldn't help but reminisce. In the beginning, the Etherium realm had barely a few dozen apex sovereigns. Fighting the abyss, they could only face it with despair and wait for death. However, after countless epochs, fate took a turn. With the birth of one genius after another, the apex sovereigns multiplied from dozens to a few thousands. It also gave birth to Maximus, a genius with heaven-defying luck who got the key to defeating the abyss. Finally, after countless sacrifices and hundreds of apex sovereigns dying, they sat on the battlefield quietly enjoying the taste of wine. What are your next plans? Malgrin broke the silence and looked at Maximus. The others also stopped and looked solemnly at Maximus. During the months-long fight, Maximus's fighting capability went beyond their expectations. In the beginning, Maximus dared to supply them with an unlimited quantity of amalgamation of will. This will is the will of the people, much like faith. Just like every energy source, everything has limits. However, they were shocked to find that no matter how much they consumed this energy, it wouldn't run out. The most puzzled by this was Riadius. He had 1,000 times more believers than Maximus, yet he may not even be able to supply the battlefield for a month. However, Maximus, a newly advanced apex sovereign, could easily do so. Riadius could only wonder what was so different about the amalgamation of will that it crushed faith by quantity. Furthermore, although they didn't see Maximus do much, seeing his injuries, they could only conclude he was one of the keys to winning their fight. Destroying the abyss portal with unknown dangers and helping them minimize casualties by a large degree. They couldn't help but admire Maximus a little. However, as leaders, at the top of their respective continent, their admiration couldn't cloud their judgment. Looking solemnly at Maximus, they waited for an answer.
Chapter 384 dimensional war Ranking.
I want to unite the Etherium realm under me, Maximus said firmly. Hearing what he said, Fialon, Alabaster, and Riadius paused, thinking he was joking. Meanwhile, Malgrin just smiled, looking forward to a good show.
What a greedy brat.
Who do you think you are? Alabaster said, looking like he was about to teach him a lesson. Riadius, on the side, also smiled, thinking Maximus was out of his mind. I'm Maximus Shadowcrest, the Holy Emperor of the Moonlight Empire, the controller of the Curse Continent. I wanted the Etherium realm to be under me, Maximus said with a smile. This is too hasty, Fialon said with a frown. Although Fialon knew his son-in-law was ambitious, he didn't expect Maximus to be this impatient. He should have waited until he was stronger than them, or at least until he was healed. Ahaha, this brat just needs some beating. Although they admitted that Maximus could compete with them, the winner and loser were not yet clear. As for Maximus's seemingly unlimited energy, in their eyes, it was only a trick. Although they couldn't be as extravagant as Maximus, there were many ways to achieve this kind of seemingly unlimited energy. Like Riadius, although he could get less faith than Maximus getting an amalgamation of will. After countless epochs of accumulation, his energy reserve was enough to drown Maximus. Just because Riadius was stingy like an old dog, he hadn't contributed his energy reserve in the battle. Anyway, there was already Maximus, who was generous enough. The unity of the Etherium realm is a must, and it must be done as quickly as possible, Maximus reasoned, not deterred by Alabaster and Riadius. Then how about you submit to me? Why should it be you? Alabaster said, looking at Maximus ridiculously. Ha ha ha, talking about this, it's only natural for the god of gods to be the ruler of the Etherium realm, Ariadius said with a laugh. Now that there was no longer an external enemy, it was time to split the interests in the Etherium realm. What about you, Fialon? You should also want to be the ruler of the Etherium realm. Malgrin said, adding fuel to the fire. I'm not that ambitious. We already have the Etherium alliance, having all the apex sovereigns of the world. There's no need to be so radical, Fialon said, calming the atmosphere. This is not enough, Maximus said. The binding power of the Etherium alliance is not enough. What binding power? Why do we need it? Strength is enough to bind everything. Alabaster said forcefully, not liking the word binding. Yes, furthermore, what are you blabbering about?
Unite?
Why do we need to unite? Isn't it enough to be on each of our continents? Riadius said impatiently. Riadius didn't have any interest in the other continents. As long as he had the divine continent, what more would he need? The power of faith couldn't be fully utilized on other continents. Due to the imperfect fusion of the Etherium realm, absorbing faith on other continents is too inefficient. If he had that time, then it was better to make the divine continent bigger and more prosperous. The Etherium realm is no longer unknown. Maximus said silently. Suddenly, they seemed to be enlightened, looking gloomily. Have we been targeted by another dimension?
Fialon asked.
They had only explored the Nexus virtual gateway for a few days, getting to know the hidden rules of the Dimensional Alliance. They knew that the danger they would face next would not only be the straightforward attacks of the Devourers, but also the hidden arrows of higher dimensions. Maximus nodded, showing various messages hacked by Jixie. As a Nexus fairy, Jixie was omnipotent in the virtual world. As long as one had money, even if it was a tier 12 dimension behind the scenes, Jixie wouldn't care. Unfortunately for these messages, Maximus had to spend a couple of septillions. Over 100. They muttered gloomily, looking at a bunch of traders. Just for some money, they dared to sell out the Etherium realm. Fortunately, all of them had already died in the earlier fight. Suddenly they look at Maximus doubtfully. Don't look at me like that. I didn't kill them. I just didn't help, Maximus defended. Most of the apex sovereigns who died were these traders. If not, there would have been only dozens of casualties. To dare to sell them out for some money, they didn't deserve any mercy, much less his help. So that's why. Understanding the core of the problem, it seemed they really needed to unite the whole Etherium realm. Only by gathering the whole dimension could they have a chance of survival.
How about it?
Uniting the Etherium realm is a must. However, why should we be under you? Riadius asked. Having fought together against the Abyss, they were not entirely against unity. However, having someone above them? They would rather die and have the whole Etherium realm destroyed than accept that. Throughout their lives, they had always been at the top. Pushing them off it was worse than killing them. Is this about resources?
Pride?
Sentimentality, or what? Maximus frowned seeing they didn't budge. Maximus, no matter what you do or what you give, you can never persuade them, Malgrin advised. In the past, he had also tried to conquer these bastards. However, even under the threat of death, they didn't change their stance and were ready to trade their lives for what they wanted. Is that so? Maximus paused, seeing their expressions. It seemed he had indeed been too hasty. These arrogant powerhouses had been on top all their lives. How could they be under him just because he said so? Suddenly, an idea flashed through his mind. He didn't need the allegiance of these arrogant powerhouses. He just needed to have absolute control of the Etherium realm. Although it might seem the same, it's different. Since you don't want to be under me, how about your people, your territory? How about you give it to me? Maximus, you are truly the greediest of all. Malgrin laughed loudly. Enough. You're testing our bottom line. Alabaster, who had the hottest temper, was already ready to attack. The enemy outside our dimension?
Unite.
How are these things related to you greedily eyeing the Etherium realm? It's because I can, Maximus said with a smile. He knew reason couldn't persuade these powerhouses. He can only hope that his fist could persuade them somehow. What arrogant words. Riadius said coldly, joining Alabaster. You can't beat me. Maximus said playfully. As a killing intent flashed in their eyes, Malgrin suddenly coughed, interrupting the erupting battle. You don't need to be so tense. We shouldn't fight among ourselves. What Fialon said is right. Instead of fighting for the ruler, why don't all of us become one? Malgrin, Maximus, although I don't know if you could defeat them, it's too hasty. Malgrin shook his head. Although he had the intention of watching the show, once everything went awry, Malgrin still had to step in. Like in the past, instead of sacrificing all the living beings in the Etherium realm, Malgrin bravely stood up and sacrificed himself. I'm just joking, I simply want to prove that I have that capability. Since they ask for his plan, then Maximus can only truthfully say it. What he wanted was absolute control of the Etherium realm. Now that he had the strength to do it, why not? With all of the apex sovereigns injured, the only obstacle was these powerhouses before him. If he didn't take this chance, then when will he? Then why are so hasty? It's for the dimensional war ranking.
Dimensional war Ranking.
The dimensional war ranking is a way for all dimensions to advance to tier 12, Maximus said, showing them the information he compiled. Dimensional war ranking is an all-out war for a dimension to advance. It was a ruthless battle where only one dimension could advance. This was the Dimensional Alliance way to produce a steady stream of tier 12 dimensions without destroying the balance of their plane of existence. In the dimensional war ranking, only dimensions on the same rank are allowed to fight with each other. No matter the conflict, hatred or interest, a higher dimension couldn't directly attack a lower dimension, joining the dimensional war ranking. Unlike the current situation of the Etherium realm, although they have the protection of Dimensional Alliance, it's only superficial. As long as a high enough dimension wanted, they can make up reasons and directly declare war. As for unknown dimensions who hadn't joined the Dimensional Alliance, they were doomed to be conquered without any rights. Just like the Etherium realm in the past, which could only defend from the Abyss invasion helplessly. Without the transdimensional system, they wouldn't even know that there is a greater world out there. Now they were facing the hunters interested in their dimension. If they wanted a fighting chance, they could only join the dimensional war ranking, forging a path of blood. Chapter 385 Binding Etherium Realm. A complete ruling committee and a representative are needed to join the dimensional war ranking. Reading this rule, they understood why Maximus was in a hurry to unite the Etherium realm.
How is it?
We still don't agree. I can't have a brat who hasn't even experienced an epic be our representative, much less the master of our dimension. Then how about we vote? According to Fialon, we would establish an Etherium alliance with all of us being leaders. As for the representative, since we can't agree unanimously, we can only vote, Maximus suggested with a smile.
Sure.
I elect myself as the representative. Who's for and who's against? Alabaster said, raising his hand. Unfortunately, no one voted besides him. Even Riadius, who was by his side, just looked gloomy. After all, who didn't want to be the representative? Being the representative is not only about status, but also the corresponding benefits. First is the profit sharing. 10% of the reward and income from the war goes to the representative automatically. Of the remaining 90%, 50% is for the dimension, and 40% is distributed according to degree of contribution. With such a large-scale war, one could imagine how massive the rewards will be. The second benefit is decision-making. The representative can decide everything, from who to fight, where to fight, the method of fighting, and the rewards. The representative can command them anything in the war unless they defect from their dimension. Because, third and the most important benefit of being a representative is being a master of the dimension. As the master, mobilizing the power of the dimension, unless one is an invincible existence above it, the representative could do anything as he will. Only a master of the dimension could mobilize and initiate a dimensional war. Thus, a representative must be the strongest, the smartest, and the most influential. Looking at the cunning Maximus, they already knew who the winner would be.
What about me, Maximus Shadowcrest?
Raise your hand if you want me to be the representative. Laughing out, Malgrin hurriedly raised his hand. As a fellow on the same continent, of course, he would support Maximus. As for being a representative or whatever, he didn't care. Fialon also raised his hand in support, seeing that his son-in-law was already the sure winner. Even if he represented himself, he was sure no one would vote for him. Everyone was selfish, thus seeing Malgrin blatantly break this balance, Fialon could only sigh and give up. Fortunately, it was Maximus, his son-in-law, which is better than either Alabaster or Riadius. Seeing the result, Alabaster nearly went berserk. He felt he was being tricked. How is this a vote? There were too few of them, to have a fair competition. However, agreeing to vote for the representative, no matter who the winner was, he couldn't do anything. It seems I won by majority vote. Maximus smiled.
Humph.
Looking at Maximus' smug face, they couldn't help but want to punch it. Fortunately, they were civilized people, so they managed to hold themselves back. Thinking of Maximus becoming the master of the dimension, thoughts of retreat flashed in their minds. It seemed they needed to set up a retreat place as soon as possible. If something went wrong and Maximus dared to abuse his power, they would quickly escape and defect from the Etherium realm. With their accumulated wealth over countless epochs, whether in energy or matter, buying a small dimension shouldn't be a problem. This is also why they didn't react greatly having Maximus above them. No matter how high he went, as long as they escaped it wouldn't affect them. Seeing there were no more complaints, Maximus quickly began the great unification. However, just as he was about to bind the Etherium realm, he was suddenly blocked by the Etherium realm world's will. Unlike other dimensions, where one only had to bind the dimension, Maximus needed to pass the world's will. As if sensing his intention, an energy manifested in front of them. What did you do? An otherworldly voice sounded. Is this the world's will? Phelan muttered in interest. Throughout all the epochs, the world's will had never manifested. It had only passed messages to them through transmission and other forms. Seeing an energy body made of the origin of law, he couldn't help but pause. I want to bind the Etherium realm, Maximus said straightforwardly. A world's will can never be the representative of a dimension. Although they are smart, powerful, and almost omnipotent, they are a different entity from them. A world's will is a manifestation of rules, formed after a series of accidents and mutations. According to what he had studied, a world's will is part of a cycle higher than their plane of existence. Theoretically, a Tier 12 dimensional world will have the capability of destroying their plane of existence by itself. Having such a threat and potential, it was destined that they could never be master and could only be used by others or be destroyed. Furthermore, through countless epochs of existence, there has never been a Tier 12 dimensional world's will. A Tier 12 dimensions limit is only a Tier 11 world's will. It seemed that their plane of existence was limiting the birth of what would destroy it. You should already know your fate. If you don't submit to us, you will either be destroyed or be captured and enslaved, Maximus explained. With the intelligence of the world's will, how could it not study the transdimensional system that suddenly appeared in its dimension? Maximus even gave it a direct copy so it could personally explore the Nexus virtual gateway. Seeing such a scene, Maximus was sure that it already knew its fate. Are you threatening me? No, I'm merely stating a fact. This has always been the fate of a world's will. Instead of having another dimension interfere, you should just let me bind you. I promise I won't do anything detrimental to the Etherium realm and will always do my best to make it prosper. After a silence, the humanoid energy entity in front of him seemed to give up its fate.
Hook.
With a nod, the worlds will suddenly merge towards him, binding itself on its own. Heaving a sigh of relief, Maximus guided the world's will on what to do. A few hours later, Maximus slowly opened his eyes. Feeling the Etherium realm bound to him, he smiled. Since you willingly bound to me, how about I give you a name?
What name?
I'll consider it. Since you are the Etherium world's will, how about I call you Etheria? That's good, I'll be named Etheria from now on. Then I look forward to working with you, Etheria, Maximus smiled. Binding Etheria, Maximus felt the Etherium realm within his grasp. Land could be terraformed, weather patterns could be altered, treasures could be picked. Anything inside the Etherium dimension could be manipulated. However, as he tried to control the chaotic sea, he felt some blockage. It seemed that the chaotic sea was not part of the dimension and couldn't be touched. Not having time to investigate further, he turned his attention to the abyss. Can you absorb this abyss? Maximus asked. Although he could do it himself, Maximus felt it was too bothersome. Absorbing the abyss was like disassembling a complete Lego set and merging it into another. Although he could do it, it was too time-consuming. Yes, this is what should I do, Etheria nodded.
That's good.
We'll leave this place to you. Tell us if you need anything else, Maximus said. The thousands of Apex sovereigns were still waiting for him to heal. Etherium realm. After Maximus returned, he hurriedly healed the Apex sovereigns. With their origin injured and almost exhausted, they barely had the power of mortals. Barely able to stand, they couldn't do anything but wait for Maximus to help them. A few days later, finally done. After working non-stop, Maximus had barely stabilized their origin. There was nothing more he could do. He had barely even healed himself, let alone others. Thank you, Alliance Leader. Yeah, they said sincerely. Even though oaths and contracts bound Maximus to fulfill his end of the bargain, they had still been worried that he might renege on his word. After all, as a dimensional master, there were many ways Maximus could cheat. It could be said that these few days, they had fallen into despair knowing Maximus had become a dimensional master. Seeing that the leaders of their continents couldn't do anything, they could only pray for themselves. Fortunately, Maximus was still trustworthy. With the stabilization of their origin, it would only take some time to regain their former glory. Don't worry, this is what I should do as the Etherium Alliance leader. These were the main fighters of the coming Dimension War ranking. He couldn't let something happen to them. Thus, even though he is not yet fully healed, he tried his best to heal them. He didn't have time for needless interest. What they had to do now is to join the Dimensional War ranking as quickly as possible. With the sword of Damocles hanging above them, he couldn't afford to waste any more time.